the first time that ever felt like really, really, really bad heroin withdrawal, like my first serious run when it got physical. I remember it was the first time that, like, because like I felt early alerts that I was getting physically addicted to heroin. Like I would feel the back symptoms, and I would feel like being kind of sweaty and unable to sleep, and a little bit of anxiety. But I was like, this is nothing. People talk about heroin withdrawal like it's hell on earth. This is nothing. I can get through this. Well, that was just the earliest, lightest signs of it. So this was the first day that I was like, oh God, I'm in heroin withdrawal and I need heroin right now. It was the first time that I really felt the terror, and I couldn't get anyone on the phone. I got into my car and drove down to the ghetto. I couldn't find heroin anywhere, so I'm really starting to panic because I'm really feeling it badly. And my mind's racing, and I'm trying to, like, it was still so early in my career that I didn't, like, know any crazy tricks on how to get it, like, you know, anywhere or whatever. So, I tried this. I had been in a car accident earlier in that year, and I didn't really get hurt in the accident, you know, maybe just a tiny little bit, like, frazzled or whatever, but I didn't get hurt at all. But nonetheless, I called up my family doctor and asked if I could come see him because I was feeling pain. And he said he couldn't see me for a couple of days, but he gave me a referral to another doctor. So I get this referral to another doctor who will see me in like an hour. So I go see this other doctor, and I'm telling him, like, yeah, I've been in an accident a couple months ago, but I'm getting, like, really bad neck pain and upper back pain, and I just want him to, like, look me over because I'm scared. So I remember being in the waiting room of this doctor's office, and there's, like, a ton of people in the waiting room. There's little kids screaming, and the big white walls everywhere, and I'm freaking out. Like, I'm sweating. It was really hitting me, like, what heroin withdrawal truly is characterized by, and it was really bad. And then, yeah, then the doctor sees me, and he's like, I'm sitting there on the little doctor's office bed thing, and I've got this doctor, like, looking me all over, like, touching my back, and doing all those standard tests, and I'm, like, in agonizing heroin withdrawal, and I'm like, I can't appear to look like I'm in heroin withdrawal. I have to, like, pull this together. So the doctor saw me and everything, and then just wrote me a script for, like, it was like just something basic like hydrocodone or whatever. But he did write me a script, and he also wrote me a benzo script. So I left that doctor's office with like a hydrocodone script and a clonazepam script, and just went to the pharmacy, got it filled, and was better. And I mean, hydrocodone's hydrocodone, but like it took away the dope sickness, and my dealer came through that night. So that was like the first time that I ever like really scammed it. So we're going to call this story, we'll call it Brenda, based on its main character of Brenda. This is the only story I have that Brenda's going to appear in, but nonetheless, Brenda deserves a story named after her, because Brenda's freaking awesome. That's not a code name, too. That was her real name. Now, Brenda's a woman I met through a man codenamed Derek, who I met through a woman codenamed Amanda. Amanda and Derek both drove me crazy. I couldn't stand being around them, but yet I had no choice because I used them for heroin money. I was a middleman for them. And one time it was Derek, Brenda, and myself. Brenda would use Derek as her middleman, and Derek didn't have good drug connections. Mediocre at best, but Brenda was from out in the country. She drove like over an hour into the city to get heroin, and Derek did what he could. You know, she was a decent spender and whatnot. He did what he could. So it was just one day that it was Derek, myself, and Brenda going to get my heroin, because this was the winter that I had the gunpowder connection. And go watch my gunpowder heroin video if you haven't seen it, because, like, you know, you can talk about two different ways of, like, the most intense time with heroin. There's the most intense time with heroin in terms of the most dire circumstances, you know, crime, theft, desperation, and all of, like, the problems surrounding the heroin addiction, one with that at its worst. But then there's also, like, when was the physical heroin addiction at its worst. Like, you were doing the most heroin. Your body was the most physically addictive. The withdrawal was that as brutal as ever. And if we're talking about the latter, the most physical my heroin addiction ever came, it was this winter of the gunpowder heroin. And just by virtue of the fact that this gunpowder heroin was far superior to any other heroin, it was strong, strong heroin. Again, go watch my gunpowder video where I talk in detail about it. But anyway, so anyone I gave a taste of the gunpowder to loved it. So it wasn't... And during this gunpowder winter, I wasn't working. I lost my job early on in that run, so I had no choice but to like middleman and do other gross, disgusting, junky stuff to keep the $100 a day habit going. One day, as I said, Brenda and Derek and I were out going to get my gunpowder, and we stopped at like a gas station or something so Derek could go inside. I don't know if he was buying a drink or using the bathroom, but whatever he was doing is a horrible mistake. He should never have done that, because Brenda and I, of course, just swapped phone numbers and we cut Derek out of the equation. So Brenda was my customer going forward. And to paint a picture of Brenda, Brenda was... she handled herself very well in the heroin game. Like, if she ever was dope sick, I couldn't tell. She was never rude. She was always polite. You know, never any issues with money or trust or anything. It was just very, very, very predictable and reliable. You know, Brenda would call you, come into town an hour later, and, you know, you would get a nice cut of the dope for free. And, again, everything went well. Brenda was probably in her 30s. And like, I would describe her as like, I would have had a crush on Brenda if I wasn't addicted to heroin at the time. Heroin, the great libido killer. Like, your mind doesn't go that way. But like, in my memory, I can really appreciate Brenda. She would dress like a 80s rocker. Like, she was wearing like, you know, Metallica and Def Leppard shirts. She had the big curly hair, and she talked with a lisp that was pretty adorable. So yeah, that's Brenda. Even my dealer at the time, my dealer who, like, you know, was himself in a rock band, and he would date like models and everything. Like, he would even say to me, "Man, there's something about Brenda." So that's Brenda. So I had been working with Brenda for a little while then, and I had gotten myself into a very unfortunate situation. This is a testament to the power of addiction, man. I was in a situation where I was getting drug tested every other Friday. And even under those constraints, I would still do heroin like 10 out of 14 days. Because I knew my body, and I needed like 4.5 or 5 days to like fully, reliably be able to take a urine test. You know, so it was always like 108 hours was my magic number. If I had made it 108 hours, I felt like with 95% confidence that I could take a urine test and pass. So I would get into this horrible routine of like Friday morning at 9 o'clock, I'd be taking my test, and I would stop doing heroin around Monday night, or Sunday night going into Monday at around midnight. So that would give me like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a little bit into Friday to have that ability to pass the test. So I would go into agonizing heroin withdrawal every other week. And of course, once I took the test and passed it, I would just go right back out. And like, so who would want to live in a situation where like, you know, what is that, like between a third and a fourth of your life is agonizing heroin withdrawal? And trust me, this was agonizing heroin withdrawal. Like, again, because this gunpowder was so strong, and I was doing like a gram, maybe more than a gram of gunpowder every day. Like, the withdrawal was, I mean, that's one thing that like people need to take away from this channel if you haven't been through heroin addiction. And incidentally, this story cannot be fully appreciated unless you've been through heroin addiction. Because if you haven't, you'll listen to it and you'll be like, "Oh, that's cute, you know, interesting, good story," but you don't see the tale of survival and heroism that is contained in this, like you would if you've been through addiction and you can fully appreciate what I did. So yes, and yeah, but those who haven't been through it, just take one thing away from my channel. Just know that heroin withdrawal is truly hell on earth. And when you've been through it and you know it so well, you look at like people in society that are judgmental, especially judgmental toward what addicts do to get more drug money and everything. It's like you almost laugh at those people, not to be mean, but like because you just know deep down that any of those people who on their high horses holier than thou judge the addicts, criticize, condemn, if any of them were thrown into heroin withdrawal, they would do the same stuff. They would. And hopefully they never have to experience it. But yeah, again, like heroin withdrawal is hell on earth. And I was putting myself through hell every other week in this time. Now, when I would go through this, I would turn my phone off. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I would just, literally want to like lay in bed and count the hours until, from 1 to 1:08. And, so I would turn my phone off. I wouldn't interact with anybody. And people I knew kind of like knew what I was doing. But this one week I made a mistake and I left my phone on. I don't remember why, but I ended up getting like a bunch of missed calls from Brenda on, it was the morning of that Thursday. So it was like my 4th day in heroin withdrawal. It was starting to get a little bit better because like days 2 and 3 are the agonizing ones. Day 4, like it still really sucks, but like some of the terror goes away, but all you can still think about is heroin, and you're craving and craving and craving. So Brenda's blowing up my phone, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. And basically saying like, if you don't help me, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. Like that was kind of the implication. And I didn't want to lose Brenda because Brenda was in part funding some of my addiction. And, any person I was middlemaning for, if I lost them, like that's just the more grimy stuff that I would have to do to keep it going. So I tried to tell Brenda, like, you gotta wait till tomorrow. You gotta wait till tomorrow. I got this test. I even tried to like call my probation officer and was like, look, I have a job interview on Friday. Can I skip this week and come in next week, please? I was like ready to be like, hey, Brenda, you're the employer. If they need to call and verify, but probation officer said, no, you absolutely have to come in this week. So I absolutely had to go in and take that test. And Brenda absolutely wanted to go cop heroin that Thursday night. So I was faced with something of a predicament. Now, I basically looked myself in the mirror and I said, like, you're going to do something that's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. You're going to get in your car, you're going to drive down, you're going to meet Brenda, you're going to buy heroin with Brenda, you're going to come back home in heroin withdrawal with heroin on your person, and you're not going to do it for another 12 or 14 hours. And this is what I had to do in order to maintain Brenda as the customer. Like, I had to do this. What's the alternative? Fail the drug test, go to jail? Yeah. So, I did it. I drove down to the ghetto with Brenda and we copped a heroin and, I drove home with it. As soon as I got home, I remember I threw it in a pocket of a coat that I had and threw the coat in like my attic and just went and hid under the covers and tried not to think about it. But like, it was like 12 hours of just that pulling, like just it pulling, and it's like the hardest thing in the world to like, it just takes it to another level. Cause like, that's when heroin withdrawal is intensified by the possibility that you could get high. That's why people say that going through withdrawal in jail is easier than it is on the outside, because you can't get it. But if you can get it and it's just a willpower thing, just the fact that you could get high and you could make that go away makes like your body and brain trick you into thinking it's even worse. So the need to make it go away is even faster, even harder. But yeah, I did. I went and I passed that test and came home and dove nose first into that gunpowder. I remember I was laying in my bed this one time in bad heroin withdrawal, again from the gunpowder heroin. And I was trying to like, it's weird because like, you should like distract yourself by doing whatever you can to make the time pass faster. But like, I usually found myself like laying in bed with the lights off, just depressed and thinking about, just all the horrors in my head. Like I'd never even had the energy to like try and watch TV. But this time, like I was like trying to watch episodes of Intervention. I hate the show Intervention. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but like one, I don't even think it's real. Like I knew someone, not personally, but like I knew a friend of a friend type situation who had been on Intervention. So like that supports that it's real. But like I think something's just weird about it, like especially when they got into like seasons like 4, 5, 6, where these people are still shocked and they have no idea this is coming. Everyone who's a drug addict knows about Intervention. Like how are people not how are they catching people off guard? Like it just doesn't make any sense. But like I'm trying to watch Intervention and people are doing heroin on it, and I'm like, oh my god, come on, I need heroin. And the only thing that I had on me was I had like one of those little tincture bottles of kava kava that I had like bought at a Whole Foods. It was like a kava kava extract. Now kava, I've never gotten anything out of kava. Like I don't know if I just haven't done enough. But like any type of like head shop kava, like it just doesn't do anything. It makes my lips numb, but nothing more. So I didn't really think like this tincture bottle was going to do anything. But I don't even want to know how much was in this tincture bottle. It was like $40 bottle, like this size or whatever. I just drank the whole freaking bottle. It blew my socks off. I don't know what the heck, why this time was different, but like it gave me like, it took away the heroin withdrawal and it washed me over with like this. I'm not going to say it is because it's not, but like this, it felt like a serotonin high in the brain. And for about an hour, it was extremely euphoric. And I was distracted from the heroin withdrawal by thinking about kava and just like enjoying this. It made it bearable for a little bit. But then I just got sick. I got really sick. I got like a horrible stomach ache on top of it and just like really, really bad. So it just compounded the horrible feelings I was going through. But yeah, like, I got out of it for an hour or two, and, that's better than nothing. So kava, if you take enough, it does mitigate heroin withdrawal a little bit.